today I'm chatting with Julia Anderson. Now, you have been a digital and social media specialist for over a decade with some serious knowledge and expertise in Facebook audience setup and optimization, which is the most important part of any successful social media campaign strategy. Facebook is a key cog in a successful franchise recruitment strategy, and one that we recommend all of our clients use to launch and promote their franchises. So it would be great if you could start by maybe explaining just some of the key aspects of setting up the page and the Meta account correctly, and then we could go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. So let's just dive in. I'll keep it simple, and thankfully it is quite simple. We've got three assets that we're thinking about when we go to Facebook advertising or Meta advertising. You're going to have your page, your Meta page, your Facebook page that acts as the front end visual for customers, what they're seeing about your brand. You're going to have an ad account set up in the back. So business.facebook.com is where you want to make sure you've got that account set up, and then it links to your personal account, but then you set up that business account in there. And then you're going to have your pixel, which is your data, your assets that's telling Facebook everything that the behaviors that are happening on your website. So the pages they're viewing, the buttons they're clicking, and any actions they're taking on the site. So let's just dive in, can we, to the pixel for a second and just talk about that, because there's two steps to setting up a pixel. There's the basic setup of a pixel, which is really quite straightforward. You go into your ad account, into your events manager. There's a section where you go ahead and create a pixel, and it's going to give you a little code that you get added to your header code on your website. And then there's a tool there just to test that that's working, an event tool, which is great. You put your URL in and you go through and you just make sure it's tracking all the actions, and that's fantastic.
How easy is that for someone to do themselves, or would they need an expert to do that?
No, they can do that. 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to do that. There's so many tutorials out there to help you. There is that you are editing the code on your website. So just if you're not confident with going in and editing the code section of your website, which is literally a copy and paste, you're not necessarily going to break anything unless you fumble around in there. But if you're not confident in doing that, just know that it is a 5-minute job, if that. So if you are going to get someone to do it for you, just know you're not going into this hundreds of dollar setup. It's a 5-minute job to add a piece of code to the site. Really, really quick. And so that's another option if you don't want to, you just don't want to do it. Yeah.
Good to know.
And so then the only the consideration to that is that the next step of the next layer of that, which is the conversion API setup. And this is actually quite critical because since the iOS sort of 14 era of updates, there's browser blocks and privacy settings that your customers or your audience will have as part of their browser or as part of their privacy settings on their computer. So they're going to hit your website, and if either of those exist, you're not going to get any data from them. So you're missing, if you're driving traffic to your site and you've only got the standard setup of the pixel, you're going to miss all of this key details about your customers because it just gets blocked. But if you can set up the API, which is that little bit of an extra layer, a little bit more complicated. So again, just use your web developers to add that code as well. And just get that in there, because then it doesn't matter if there's blockers, because then it's just like server to server. And so that information will go through and you still get the behaviors that they're doing, and even actually a bit more accuracy and more depth. And also it doesn't duplicate. So often some of these platforms, like the numbers look high, but it's often a duplication of different things happening. So it avoids that as well.
Okay, great. Okay, excellent. Okay, and so then once all that's done, how do they get some good campaigns going? What are the key aspects to that? I know we spoke the other day and you were talking about the types, of content, like using more raw images and less, constructed and branded. So it would be great to, get a bit of an understanding of what is going to resonate and what's going to get engagement.
Yeah, awesome. I like to look at advertising on Facebook, or any presence that your brand has on Facebook in two lights. And I suppose again, this just comes from my experience, who I've studied under in the industry, and where the success has been found. And really, that comes back to two things. That is knowing your customer, like really deeply, intimately knowing them like they're a best friend. You know what they like to eat, where they like to hang out, what music and podcasts they like to listen to. It's really a deep understanding of your customer is critical, and then that will help you with getting in front of them on those platforms. And then, of course, how good your offer is. So sometimes you can have an awesome offer, not necessarily know who your core customer is, but if your offer's awesome in the short term, that'll work for you. In the long term of advertising, you need to know your customer well. But in terms of, if we go to assets,
How do we find out all of that information without actually stalking them?
How do you find out?
Yeah, or just, who they are. You're talking about what they like, the sites and the music and the podcasts. Like,
yeah, there's actually so many ways to do that now, and thank God for AI, because it'll save you a ton of time that used to
really
researching. There's lots of tools out there to go and find out, but there's lots of recommendations as well around. A lot of people will talk about going to if you know the types of books that your customers are interested in. So in this case, entrepreneur kind of people, or people that are interested in business, right? So going and finding those top business books, and then going into, like, say, take Amazon for example, is a good one that I've heard recommended, where you go down to the reviews and you look at what people talk about in the reviews. What are the pain points? What are the struggles? What are they wanting to achieve? What's that aspirational piece for them? That's a really neat way. And then just going and looking at the top podcasts, the top visited sites for the types of people that you're talking to. There's lots of different tools out there for insights, some free, some paid. There's a lot of different ways to understand. If you've got customers in mind, or you're already working with customers, talk to them. That's critical. Just ask them. There's lots of good templates out there. I can share one with you, Tereza, and that just is just asking those questions. What, where do you enjoy spending time? What do you do? What are your hobbies? And all of that allows you to sometimes find trends across them. So maybe they all enjoy a certain genre of music, or maybe they all enjoy a certain genre of movies. And then, so when you're going into the back of Facebook and we're talking about interest-based targeting, we're going in and we're asking Facebook to start tracking people that are interested in X, Y, and Z. So so lots of different things. Maybe you're targeting a certain group of women who love Oprah. Well, Oprah's got a massive following, so we can easily tap into Oprah's audiences and things like that. So that's just one example. But that's quite broad. We can get a lot more narrow and focused in on those audiences. So that's just one offer. I feel like I rambled there. Hopefully that.
No, that's amazing. It's just I'm a lot of people are probably in the same boat as me, not quite understanding what the scope of AI is yet, but just to be able to use it for that type of thing and ask it questions about, typical business owners, what are the podcasts they're listening to? And, you can even narrow it down to market. So you can even specify Australia or New Zealand. And
yes.
Never even.
And I think that one of the best things you could do with just ChatGPT is you could dive in there and just put a prompt in there. Basically tell ChatGPT who it is. So for example, you say you're a meta advertising expert. You've been in the industry for over a decade. You've worked with over 100 businesses in all sorts of industries, or you've narrowed in on this one industry and you know it back like the back of your hand. And then ask it to tell you where it's having success. And then don't just trust it because you're not an expert. If you were an expert to ChatGPT, then you could cross-check it and say, yeah, cool, I agree. But if you're not, then go and put that in front of your customer that you do have conversations with and say, hey, does any of this sit with you? Would you hang out here? Would you listen to this? Would you talk to that? And just get them to validate, what you're coming up with. And then if you get some validation on that, then test it. And I think that's critical in marketing. it's still a test. It's still a testing. You put something out there and you see if it lands, and if it doesn't, you try something new, and
Yeah.
if and sort of run those wins longer. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, don't be afraid to test something. It is going to,
Yeah.
that is one of the hardest things for small business. And I've worked with a lot of small businesses over the years, and putting their hard-earned money into testing something in the market and not knowing whether it's going to work is quite daunting. But if you do the homework, you know who you're talking to, and you really trust that your offer, what you're putting in front of them is a really good offer, something that they want.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that's where you come unstuck. You're either not getting in front of the right people, or your offer is just not good enough. It doesn't
Yeah.
cut through. There's a lot of noise. If you got everyone that goes onto your Facebook, every second post is something that you didn't want to see. It's something
Yeah.
that not from your friends or your family, or not something you're interested in, because Facebook's just trying to get stuff in front of you to see whether you're going to react to it or not. But if it's not a good offer that's going to cut through the noise,
Mm.
yeah, that's costly as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So in terms of the actual campaign, I mentioned before that you said to me a few days ago that, just even the images that you use in campaigns are
Yeah, sure.
critical. So maybe, you can just sort of break it down to what you've seen, the trends and what people are responding to. And then, that's quite helpful for business owners knowing what to post, or, what imagery to use in their campaigns.
Yeah, I think that at its core, Facebook and Instagram and any of the platforms really, it just wants to feel native to the platform. It's like you've taken a snap, like you would if it was a personal shot, and
Yeah.
you've popped it onto social media. They want the rawness and the realness that creates that connection, not the polished, branded. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, there's a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're in the industry where that stuff really matters.
Mm.
Um, but also there's got to be that rawness and realness to the connection. People want to just know that behind the brand is another human who cares about the same things that they care about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, definitely the split testing, at least that I've been across, has definitely favored the more raw and real over the branded. You
Yeah.
have a great image, but then you've thrown branding all over it. So
Yeah.
and when you're scrolling straight away, psychologically as a person seeing that, you're just like, oh, another ad, another ad, another ad.
Mhm.
But if I'm just seeing a really cool image of something that looks like native to my feed, not really realizing it's an ad, that's where the cut through is.
I find I feel like that is going to be a lot easier for certain industries and less easier for other ones. So, to keep it, I guess, relevant and to your business while trying to strike that balance of it being native to the feed. For example, a food business or a restaurant could easily post images of their products, and they're going to be attractive and visually impactful and colourful and delicious and mouth-watering. But what about for a plumber or a trades-based business? How do you
Yeah,
how does
I
that
think,
translate?
I'd like to refer to TikTok in this example, but it's those the industries are so the things that get traction or the things that get viral, they're so real. They're on a construction site, they're
Yeah,
doing lawn mowing for free. I mean, the amount of videos that are going around of people just giving free lawn mowing is insane, but it's so raw and real, and it's what people connect to.
yeah,
And so if you were showing that first and then cutting to you talking to the camera about, hey, if this is something you love to do, this is an opportunity that we've got for you if you want to, and then you can use that. But like I said at the start, split test it. Run the campaign, run the ad groups, and split test the two ad sets. Run with some really raw ads and one with some really professional,
yeah,
like very branded ads, and see which ones cut through.
yeah.
Because maybe for your audience, the branded ones matter
Mm,
more than the ones that are more real and raw and connected.
yeah,
Or think about where you are in the funnel. The top of the funnel where it's building awareness, so just getting people to know you. And then you go into the middle of the funnel where you want them to like you. And then you go into bottom of the funnel where you want them to trust you. So maybe at the top of the funnel, it's raw and you're just getting awareness of like, hey, we're over here. If you're interested, this is what we do. And then they start to like you and they start to see you a little bit more about you and understand a little bit more about you and what you offer. And you've given them some great value. And then they're seriously considering it and they go, okay, now show me how professional you are. Like how serious is this? Am I going to go down this path? I need to have a little bit more trust in what you're doing. So it's maybe test it in different layers of campaigns. I like to make sure that when you're setting up your ad accounts, you've got top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel advertising.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just sort of going back more into that a little bit, you how much of that business owner should they put in those posts? Do people really, I feel like it's a really fine line between staying professional and becoming relatable. And you can only really become relatable by giving over a bit of your sort of your personality and your life and what you do. Like, nobody wants to sit there and look, that I had Weet-Bix for breakfast. But does bringing some of that personal stuff into
I've got to not everyone's going to have a different view on this. But I actually think people do want to know what you have for breakfast. I do. I think
literally
people want to know who you are.
Yeah.
Because they're going to resonate with you. And then because they resonate with you, they're going to start to like you. And then if they like you, they're going to start to trust you. And if they trust you, they're going to do business with you.
Yeah.
So I do think that people want to know what you have for breakfast.
Yeah.
Maybe not Weet-Bix, but something more picturesque.
Like when you're baking and eggs, maybe share that.
No, I do truly think, and I see it as well. I see a lot of it in very big, successful organizations. One of the top sort of marketing agencies, education agencies that I follow and I studied under. If you watch the CEO of that company, or both of the CEOs of the different companies, they are posting personal life things like what charities they're about. What they follow, what they support, what they're eating for breakfast, what they're making their wife, all sorts of things they're posting. They do that on their stories. Okay, so let's differentiate here. They do that on their stories. Yeah. They don't do that necessarily in their post on their page. So there's like a differentiation of how the placements that they use.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of the stories is like, hey, this is my personal life. Here's what I'm up to now. I'm taking my dog for a walk. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And they're just chatting and getting to know, or allowing the audience to get to know them. But then if you go to their page, a lot of that content's not on their page. But that's a good differentiation there.
Yes, yeah, and that's a great point. And that's exactly what Stories is great for, because they're up for 24 hours and it's just a little bit of an excerpt of what's going on in that business. So yeah, and if you could, the more you can make it about people, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So I think you can do that. But I would split tests in the background. No, like not literally advertise what you're having for breakfast, but I would advertise more of that raw content versus some of that branding content, and just let Facebook tell you what the audience is, or let your audience rather tell you what they like. And that's going to be where you're going to see the success, whether it's cost per acquisition and the difference there. You may get more leads from something, but it might cost you more. So just different things like that to take into account.
Okay. And just finally, is it possible for Joe Blogs to actually set up an effective campaign in Meta? Going into the back end of Meta looks like, the Matrix to me. Is it something that the average business owner can do, or should they really engage with a professional, who specializes in this area?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a real heart for businesses, but getting this right, but not getting taken down the merry lane of there's a lot of horror stories, I suppose, out there that I'm very aware of. And so I do have a real heart for making sure businesses feel like they understand what's being set up. I think that the key thing is to if you're brand new to it and you have no idea, you can waste a lot of money. You can waste a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You do want to find somebody that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
So have a good conversation with some different, whether it's agencies or solo consultants.
Yeah.
Uh, but I like the idea of being on the journey as they build it out for you, understanding it, because too often uh, people go into a situation where they basically get a black box built in their business, and it's one area that they just don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody set that up for me. I don't understand it. I don't know what's set up. I don't know how it works. And that doesn't, you can't sleep well with that happening.
No.
So I do think that it's worth investing in somebody to help you who really understands it. I would find out as much as you can about their experience, their background, their history, where they've come from. Do they come from marketing, or do they come from a completely different industry and they've just dived into Facebook ads? Like, just try and go with your gut, and hopefully, you can meet someone that can really help set that up for you. But I know when I was consulting a lot in this space with my customers, I did my very best to make sure that they understood what was set up, how it was set up. I would record a lot of videos talking through what I've set up in their account, how to change it, how to stop it, how to add more to it if they want to. It was about 50-50. Some were like, that's great, I'll take it from here. Great, do that, save some coin, take it. And others were like, I don't want to. I don't have time. I don't want to spend time on that, but I trust what you're doing. So you go ahead and keep going.
Yeah.
And if you're getting results, the thing I like about digital marketing is it's like a tap. You can turn it up and turn it down.
Yeah.
And if you're getting the results that you need. But coming back to your question, I do think that it is something that you can probably bring in-house once you've set it up and it's working and you're happy with it and you're getting the results and you know what's been set up.
Yeah.
And then nobody else is going to know your customer like you do. That's the critical thing. But if you don't have the time to invest in it, then definitely use someone to help you in that space. And just, you can see the activity logs, by the way. You can see what's being done in the account. So if you are paying someone to look after your ad accounts and you want to make sure that they're actually they're in there and they're looking at it and they're being effective and optimizing it, you can go ahead and just check. And if you haven't seen any activity and you've been paying bills and not seeing anything, just have a chat with them and ask them what they're doing.
Yeah.
Especially if the results aren't there. So that's just to have that peace of mind that you're investing in something that's working, because it's a daunting space to go into, but there are some fantastic marketers out there who do amazing things in this space and who want to do what's best for their customers. So find them and all the best.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And thanks again for today. This has been super helpful and insightful. So very much appreciate your time.
It was so lovely. Thanks for having me.